You opened your eyes this morning with the intention to be different, not just a vague feeling, a real one. You had a plan. Maybe you were going to wake up earlier. Maybe you were going to stop doing that one thing you always tell yourself you will stop doing. Maybe you were going to finally begin something you have been thinking about for months. And for a moment, in that space between sleep and full wakefulness, it felt possible. It felt close, like it was right there within reach. Then the day happened, and by evening, you were sitting in the same position, in the same mood, doing the same things you did yesterday, and the day before that, and the week before that. And somewhere inside you, something noticed, something always notices. A quiet heaviness settled in. Not loud enough to be a crisis, not small enough to ignore, just this low, persistent feeling that something is off, that you are somehow moving through days without actually moving. That feeling is not weakness, it is not laziness, it is not even a lack of motivation. It is something much older than any of those words. And if you do not understand what it actually is, you will spend years fighting the wrong thing. You will try harder. You will set more alarms. You will make more plans. And you will end up back in the same place, carrying the same heaviness, wondering why nothing seems to stick. So let us slow down. Let us look at what is actually happening inside you. There is a pattern that almost no one explains clearly. It begins not when you fail, but when you succeed at doing nothing. You know that moment when you had something important to do and you delayed it, and then an hour passed, and somehow you felt relief? Not guilt, relief, like a pressure had eased. That feeling is not random. It is your internal system doing exactly what it was trained to do. It chose comfort over growth, and it was rewarded with ease, and now it knows the shortcut. This is the Nafs, not in the abstract, religious sense, in the most immediate, personal, unavoidable sense. The Nafs is the part of you that is always calculating, always looking for the lowest energy path, always gravitating toward what is familiar, even when familiar is painful, even when familiar is shrinking you, because at least familiar is known. The Nafs does not care about your future self, it only cares about right now. And right now, comfort feels better than effort. You are not fighting laziness. You are fighting a system that has been optimizing for ease since the day you were born. And here is the first thing most people never realize. You did not create this system consciously. It was built through repetition. Every time you avoided something difficult and felt relief, the pattern was reinforced. Every time you delayed something important and distracted yourself with something easy, the pathway deepened. Every time you broke a promise to yourself and found a reason that made it acceptable, the system learned that breaking promises to yourself has no real consequences. It learned this from you, and now it is running the program. Think about the last time you decided to change something. Really decided, not just thought about it, but felt it with conviction. Where did that decision go? Not immediately, not on day one. On day one, you were motivated. On day two, you were disciplined. On day three, something happened. A disruption, a tiredness, a small thing that made the habit harder to execute. And in that moment, the internal system offered you a door. Just today, it said, just skip it today, you deserve a break. And you walked through the door. That door did not lead somewhere new. It led back to who you have always been. This is what repetition actually is. Not just repeating actions, repeating a version of yourself. Every time you return to the familiar pattern, you are not just doing a thing, you are confirming an identity. You are telling every layer of yourself, this is who I am, this is how I respond, this is what I do when things get hard. And the longer you confirm that identity, the more solid it becomes, until it does not feel like a habit anymore. It feels like your personality. It feels like just the way you are. but it is not who you are. It is what you have practiced. Now let us go one layer deeper, because the nafs is only part of the picture. There is something else happening that most people never identify. It is happening in the qalb, the heart, the center of your interior life. And the qalb has a particular vulnerability that the nafs exploits constantly. The qalb cannot serve two masters without fracturing. When you want to change but also want to stay comfortable, your qalb is split. When you want to be disciplined but also want to escape, your qalb is split. When you want to build something meaningful but also want to stay safe, your qalb is split. And a split heart does not produce half action. It produces paralysis. It produces this experience of wanting to move, but feeling somehow frozen, of starting things and not finishing them, of making plans that dissolve before they reach execution. You might have called this procrastination, or fear, or lack of willpower, but what it actually is a qalb that has not chosen. And until the heart chooses, the body will not commit. The hands will not move with full force. The mind will generate reasons to stop before the thing is completed, because somewhere deep inside, something is still holding both options open, still keeping one foot in the old version and one foot pointed toward something new. And that position, that half and half out position, is exhausting. It takes more energy to hold that tension than it would to simply choose. But choosing feels like loss. Choosing one path means closing another. And the nafs convinces the heart that maybe, if you just wait a little longer, you will not have to give anything up. Maybe you can have both. Maybe there is a way to change without the discomfort of changing. There is not. There never was. Every person who has ever genuinely changed their life did not find a way to avoid the discomfort. They simply stopped letting the discomfort be the deciding factor. They felt the resistance and moved anyway. Not because they were special, not because they had some capacity you do not have, but because at some point something shifted in their interior, something in the qalb became clear. And when the heart is clear, even difficult actions feel possible. Not easy, possible. But what happens when the heart is not clear? You repeat yourself. You repeat the same morning, the same avoidance, the same quick scroll through something that costs you nothing and gives you nothing, the same breaking of the same promises, the same version of the same conversation with yourself at the end of the day, where you say tomorrow, and you almost believe it, but something in you knows, something in you has heard tomorrow before. This is the loop, and the loop has a very specific mechanism. It does not run on failure. It runs on the gap between intention and action. Every time your intention is high and your action is low, the gap widens. And every time the gap widens, you feel a little less capable of closing it. Not because you actually become less capable, but because the nafs uses that gap as evidence. See, it says, you said you would do it and you did not. This is who you are. And if you are not careful, you start to believe that evidence. You start to build your self-image around the gap rather than around your potential. You start to see yourself as someone who almost does things, someone who has good ideas but does not follow through, someone who starts but never finishes. And then you meet the most dangerous version of this loop. You start protecting yourself from trying, because if you do not try fully, you cannot fail fully. If you give it 70% and it does not work, you can always say you did not really try. The nafs is sophisticated. It disguises self-protection as wisdom. It calls avoidance caution. It calls half-effort practicality. It makes you feel like you are being reasonable when really you are just afraid. Afraid of what? This is the question almost no one asks themselves clearly. Afraid of the version of yourself that could actually do it. Because that version would require you to stop making the excuses that have kept you comfortable. That version would require you to be honest about how much time you have wasted. That version would require you to let go of the story that says the circumstances were against you, the timing was wrong, the world did not cooperate. And that story, as painful as it is, has also been protecting you. It has been keeping the responsibility outside of yourself. Losing that story feels like losing ground, but it is not losing ground. It is the beginning of actual movement. Now here is something that will feel uncomfortable to hear. The version of yourself that you keep imagining, the disciplined one, the focused one, the one who follows through, that version is not far from you. It is not separated from you by talent. It is not separated from you by intelligence. It is not separated from you by some spiritual ranking you have not yet achieved. It is separated from you by one thing only: repetition in a different direction. That is it. The same mechanism that built the loop you are in now is the same mechanism that can build a different reality. The Nafs responds to repetition. It responds to what you consistently do, not to what you intensely intend. One intense moment of resolution is worth almost nothing against years of accumulated pattern, but consistent, small, repeated action rewrites the pattern. Not dramatically, not visibly at first, but structurally, at the level where the automatic choices are made. The problem is, this truth does not feel satisfying because it does not give you a shortcut. It does not give you a moment of transformation. It does not promise that if you just understand this correctly, everything will shift tonight. The Nafs loves the idea of transformation. It loves the idea of a single insight that changes everything, because that idea keeps you waiting for the insight rather than doing the work. You watch one more video. You read one more thing. You have one more deep conversation about who you want to be, and none of it moves anything, because the Nafs has redirected your desire for change into consumption of the idea of change. You are feeding the hunger with images of food, and you are still starving. Let us talk about the roux for a moment, because it has been present this entire time, and it never asked for your attention. The roux does not compete with the Nafs. It does not argue with the Qalb. It simply holds. It is the part of you that knows, not knows information, but knows reality. And the reality it holds is this: you were not made for this loop. You were not assembled from the finest elements of creation to spend your years in repetition without meaning. Something in you already knows this. That is why the heaviness is there. That is why the discomfort exists. That is why you watch people living with full commitment and feel something that is not quite jealousy and not quite admiration, but somewhere between the two. The roux is calling you toward your actual life, and the Nafs is offering you a very comfortable counterfeit. The counterfeit looks like this: a day that passes without real effort but also without real discomfort, entertainment that requires nothing of you, plans that sound ambitious but have no deadline, conversations about potential that never convert into action, a carefully maintained feeling of "I could if I wanted to," which protects you from the terrifying possibility that maybe you are not trying. The counterfeit is not dramatic. It does not announce itself. It just becomes your life, slowly, quietly, 1 mild day at a time. And then one day you look up and realize that years have moved while you were comfortable, that the thing you always said you would do is still undone, that the version of yourself you kept describing to people is still only a description, and the heaviness that was once a whisper has become something harder to name. Not quite regret, not quite despair, but a growing awareness that something was given to you and you have been letting it sit untouched. This is the danger the traditions of the heart have always warned about. Not sin, not failure, not even wrongdoing. The slow, painless erosion of what you were given to do here. Now let us talk about the moment of pattern breaking, because there is one, and it is not what you expect. It is not a moment of high motivation. It is not the moment when you finally feel ready. Motivation is a passenger, not a driver. It will ride with you when conditions are good, but it will not get out and push when the road gets hard. If you have been waiting to feel ready, you have been misunderstanding how readiness works. Readiness is not a feeling that precedes action. It is a feeling that follows it. You feel ready after you begin. You feel capable after you do something difficult. You feel aligned after you act in accordance with who you want to be. The sequence is not feel it, then do it. The sequence is do it, and then something inside you begins to reorganize. The Qalb begins to choose. The Nafs begins to find new evidence. The pattern begins to shift. But that first movement, that first choice to act before you feel like acting, that is the hardest thing in the interior life. It is hard because the Nafs has made comfort feel like safety, and moving without feeling ready feels like danger. The body tenses, the mind generates reasons to wait. A voice inside that sounds like wisdom says not yet. Conditions are not right. You need more time, more information, more preparation. And that voice is almost never wisdom. It is almost always the Nafs, sophisticated enough to wear the clothing of wisdom. Real wisdom is quieter. Real wisdom does not argue. It simply points. And what it is pointing at is always the same thing. Not the grand transformation, not the dramatic breakthrough, just the next small, honest action, the one you have been avoiding, the one that feels uncomfortable precisely because it would require you to stop pretending there is a better time coming. The one that, if you do it now, would be evidence of a different kind of person. That action is almost never a large one. It is almost always small enough that the Nafs dismisses it as insignificant. What difference does it make to do this one thing? What changes if I just do it once? The Nafs is right that one action does not transform you, but it is wrong about the significance, because the significance is not in the action itself. The significance is in what doing that action tells every layer of your interior. It tells the Qalb that it is chosen. It tells the Nafs that comfort is not the supreme value. It tells the Ruh that you are listening. And that signal, sent consistently, begins to rebuild the pattern from the inside. Now let us look at the moments you recognize but never examine. The moment when you are about to do something difficult and you feel a sudden, inexplicable need to do something else first. Clean the room, check your phone, get water, make tea, prepare the space more carefully. These are not needs. They are the Nafs redirecting your energy at the moment when the real thing is about to begin. It has learned the exact timing. It knows when you are close to the uncomfortable edge, and it offers you a very reasonable detour. The detour always feels justified. That is how you know it is the Nafs, because the Nafs does not offer you obviously bad choices. It offers you choices that are either good in themselves or at least neutral. Watch something educational instead of doing the work. Talk to someone about your plans instead of executing them. Research the thing more carefully before you begin. Rest today so you can be more effective tomorrow. None of these is evil. All of them can be true sometimes. But in the moment when they appear just as you are about to take real action, they are not wisdom. They are the system protecting its own patterns. You have learned to recognize this. You just have not decided what to do with the recognition. And that is the actual problem, not the lack of knowledge, not the absence of insight. You have read things, you have understood things, you have had moments of clarity that felt like they would change you. And then the clarity faded and the pattern remained. Because clarity without action does not build new patterns. It just makes the old pattern slightly more embarrassing to continue. You are aware of yourself now, but awareness without movement is a kind of prison. It is a very sophisticated prison because the walls are made of your own understanding. You know what you are doing. You know why you are doing it. You can explain it to other people in remarkable detail, but you are still doing it. And every time you explain it without changing it, the explanation becomes another way of staying still, another product of the mind offered to the Nafs as a substitute for actual transformation. The Nafs is very comfortable with smart people. Smart people give it better material to work with. Let us talk about what breaking the pattern actually feels like, because people are almost never prepared for this. They imagine it will feel like freedom, like relief, like finally becoming the person they always knew they could be. And sometimes there is a moment of that. But more often, when you begin to act differently than your pattern, it feels wrong. Not morally wrong, just off. Like wearing clothes that do not fit yet. Like speaking in a language you are learning but do not yet feel at home in. This discomfort is not a sign that you are making a mistake. It is a sign that you are making a change. The Nafs will interpret this discomfort as evidence that the new path is not for you. This does not feel natural, it will say. This is not who you are, and it is right. This is not who you have been, but who you have been is not a fixed destination, it is a pattern. And patterns can be rewritten by anyone willing to endure the period of discomfort before the new pattern solidifies. That period is not long in the grand scale, but it is long enough that most people return before they reach it. They return because the old pattern offers comfort at exactly the right moment. When the new behavior is hardest and feels most foreign, the old behavior feels most familiar and warm. Like returning home after a long and difficult journey, and the Nafs does not say you are giving up. It says you are being wise, you are listening to yourself, you are being kind to yourself. The language of self-compassion has been borrowed by the Nafs and used as a reason to stop. Real self-compassion would say, you deserve the life on the other side of this discomfort. The Nafs says, you deserve rest right now, and right now always wins over eventually. Unless something shifts in the Qalb, that shift is not an emotion. It is not a feeling of being fired up. It is quieter than that. It is a settling, a kind of interior clarification where the heart stops holding both options and simply rests on one. This is what the tradition called determination, and it is different from intention. Intention is the mind saying, I want to. Determination is the heart saying, I will. And the difference between those two statements is the difference between a life of plans and a life of actual movement. You may have experienced this shift before. A moment where something inside you became still and clear, where the usual noise of competing desires went quiet and something just became obvious. If you have experienced it, you know it does not require enthusiasm. It does not require certainty about the outcome. It only requires a kind of quiet settling into the direction. That settling is available to you right now. Not as a technique, not as a result of reading the right thing. It is available because it has always been available. The Ruh has been holding the direction the entire time. The Qalb has been capable of choosing the entire time. The Nafs has simply been louder, and you have been listening to the loudest voice rather than the truest one. Now here is something you need to sit with. The person you imagine yourself becoming is not a stranger. They do not exist in a parallel life that is not yours. They are the version of you that has made different choices consistently for long enough that different choices became natural. That is all. There is no other ingredient, no secret trait, no unique capacity, just choices made, repeated, until they became who you are. And the opposite is also true. The person you are now is not who you actually are. They are who you have practiced being. Every repeated avoidance made avoidance more natural. Every broken promise made breaking promises more expected. Every comfortable choice at the expense of a meaningful one made comfortable choices feel more like your personality. But personality is not fixed at birth. It is constructed over time by the things you consistently do. This means that the you who exists in 10 years is being built right now, not by your grand intentions, by your ordinary, unremarkable, daily choices, the ones that feel too small to matter. The one moment where you could do the hard thing or the easy thing and no one would know which you chose. The moment of real decision is almost never dramatic. It is almost never witnessed. It is usually in a quiet room, alone, When the Nafs offers you the familiar path and something in you considers it, that consideration is where your future is written, not in declarations, not in resolutions, not in the moments when you feel inspired and clear, in the ordinary, private, unwitnessed moment of choice. And this is why self-knowledge matters more than motivation. Motivation changes. Clarity about what is actually happening inside you remains useful even when motivation is gone. If you know what the Nafs is doing, you can recognize it in the moment. If you understand how the Qalb splits under competing desires, you can feel it happening and respond differently. If you remember that the Ruh is holding something that the Nafs cannot access, you can return to it in the moments of pull toward the old pattern. This is not a perfect system. You will still slip. You will still have days where the Nafs wins, where the old pattern reasserts itself with full force, and you find yourself at the end of the day having repeated yourself again. These days are not catastrophic. They are not proof that you cannot change. They are simply information, data about where the pattern is still strong, where the Qalb has not yet chosen fully, where the Nafs has found a vulnerability it can use. What matters is not whether you slip. What matters is how quickly you notice and what you do with the noticing, because there is a version of noticing that makes things worse. It is the version where you observe the slip and then spiral into self-criticism, where you use the failure as evidence that you are fundamentally broken, where the noticing becomes a new form of indulgence, a performance of self-awareness that substitutes for actual return. The Nafs can use self-criticism just as effectively as self-justification. Both keep you stationary. One says, "I am too comfortable to change." The other says, "I am too broken to change." The destination is the same. The response that actually moves you forward is simpler and less dramatic than either. It is just return, without ceremony, without extended self-examination, without the need to understand exactly why you slipped before you allow yourself to continue. Just return to the direction. Just do the next thing that is aligned with who you are trying to become. The return is the discipline, not the falling. Everyone falls. The question is whether you make falling into a story or make returning into a habit. Make returning into a habit. Every time you return, you are not starting over. You are building the muscle of return itself. And that muscle is more valuable than any streak of perfection, because life will always provide moments that interrupt the pattern. Illness, difficulty, confusion, loss. The person who can only maintain good habits under perfect conditions will lose them the moment conditions become imperfect. The person who has practiced returning after slipping has a skill that serves them for life. Let us be honest about something else now. There are people in your life, or people you observe from a distance, who seem to have figured something out that you have not. They move with a kind of consistency that you find both admirable and slightly exhausting to witness. They are not necessarily more talented. They are not necessarily more intelligent. They are not leading lives that are dramatically easier than yours. But something in their interior is organized differently, and you probably already know what it is. Their Qalb has settled. It is not divided between the comfortable version and the meaningful version. It has decided, not once dramatically, but again and again quietly in those ordinary private moments. And because it has decided, the Nafs has less material to work with. It still pulls. It always pulls. But the decision in the Qalb meets the pull with something the Nafs cannot easily overcome: a clear direction. You want that, not just as an idea, as a lived reality. And the path to it is not more information. It is not more preparation. It is not waiting until your circumstances improve, or until you feel more ready, or until you have more time. It is the choice that is available to you right now, in this moment. After this ends, when you close this and the familiar pull toward the usual begins, there will be a moment a small, quiet moment where something in you pauses. That pause is the door. Most people walk past it every day. They walk past it because it is small, because it does not announce itself, because the Nafs is talking at exactly that moment, and the Nafs is loud and the door is quiet. But if you know it is there, if you have understood something today that you did not fully hold before, you can stop in that pause. You can feel the pull, and then you can choose. Not dramatically, not with a declaration, not with a feeling of being fired up and finally ready, just a quiet interior choice. This time I will not go through that door. This time I will do the small next thing. This time the Nafs will not be the deciding voice. This is how patterns change, not in the moments of high emotion, not in the speeches you make to yourself at night about who you will become, not in the detailed plans you write down and review and feel hopeful about, in the moment no one sees, in the pause that lasts maybe 3 seconds, in the choice that feels almost too small to be significant. But it is the most significant thing you do, because everything you are is built on those moments. Everything you will become is waiting in them. There is one more thing that needs to be said, and it is perhaps the most important thing in this entire conversation. You already know most of this, not because you have heard it before exactly, but because the Ru holds this knowledge. It was deposited in you. The capacity to recognize this, to feel the weight of it, to know when something is true even before you can explain why. That capacity is not something you learned, it is something you are. The Nafs pulls you toward forgetting, toward numbing, toward filling every quiet moment with something that prevents you from hearing what the Ru is saying. The scrolling is not really about the content. The avoidance is not really about the task. They are about not sitting with the knowledge that something in you knows your life is not yet what it is supposed to be. That knowledge is uncomfortable, but it is also the most honest thing inside you. And the day you stop running from it, stop filling the space where it lives with noise and distraction and comfortable repetition, that day you will discover that it was never an accusation, it was always an invitation. The Ru does not say you are failing. It says you have not yet begun, and it says this not to shame you, but because it knows what you are capable of, and it has been waiting patiently with no urgency, no deadline, no frustration, simply present, holding the direction, holding the possibility, holding the version of you that is not a distant dream, but a near and achievable reality that requires only one thing from you. Not perfection, not readiness, not the right circumstances, just the choice to stop repeating yourself and to begin quietly and without ceremony, actually moving. The heaviness you felt when you started listening to this was not a problem to solve, it was the Ru, reminding you that you already know the way, you were just not listening. Now let us look at something even more specific. Something that happens so quietly you have probably never examined it directly. You make a promise to yourself, not to anyone else, to yourself. You say, I will do this, and you feel something when you say it, a small surge of something that feels like truth, like alignment, like this is right. And then the moment passes and the Nafs begins its work, and by the time the action is required, the feeling is gone. And without the feeling, the action does not happen. And without the action, the promise is broken. But here is what no one tells you about broken promises to yourself. They compound. The first one barely registers. You almost do not notice it. The second one is slightly more familiar. The third one comes with a small internal adjustment, a quiet restructuring of what you expect from yourself. By the 10th, by the 20th, by the 100th small broken promise, something has shifted in the interior in a way that is very difficult to reverse. You have built a relationship with yourself, and in that relationship you are the person who does not follow through. You are the person whose word to himself does not hold weight. You are, in the deepest and most functional sense, not trustworthy to yourself. And then you wonder why you cannot commit to things, why starting feels hard, why the motivation collapses so quickly after the initial decision. It is not a mystery. When you have broken your own word so many times that your word no longer carries weight even to yourself, commitment becomes functionally impossible. Not because you are weak, because the mechanism of self-trust is damaged. And without self-trust, the Qalb cannot settle into a decision because some part of it knows what history says about your decisions. The repair of this is not complicated, but it is slow. It requires that you begin making promises to yourself that you actually keep, not large ones, not the ambitious declarations that set you up for failure, small ones, tiny ones so small that the Nafs almost laughs at them. I will drink water before I open my phone. I will write one sentence. I will stand up and move for 2 minutes. I will begin the thing before I decide how it will go. Promises this small feel insulting to the part of you that wants to be the kind of person who makes and keeps grand commitments. But the part of you that wants the grand commitment does not trust itself yet, and trust is not built by intention. It is built by evidence. Every small, kept promise is a deposit into the account of self-trust. Every completed micro-action says to every layer of your interior, this person does what they say. And slowly, over time, the Qalb begins to lean on that evidence, begins to find the settling that commitment requires, begins to choose with a firmness that was not possible when the account was empty. You are not rebuilding willpower. You are rebuilding a relationship with yourself. And like all relationships, it is rebuilt through small, consistent, honest acts over time, not through a single dramatic moment of reconciliation. Now there is something in the nature of time that the Nafs exploits in a very particular way. It makes the present feel like it will last forever. Whatever state you are in right now feels permanent. If you are unmotivated, motivation feels like something that belongs to a different kind of person. If you are stuck, forward movement feels like a concept that does not apply to your actual life. The Nafs uses this feeling of permanence to make inaction feel like the only realistic option. But the present is not permanent. It never has been. The person you were 3 years ago was in a present that felt permanent. The worries that consumed them then are probably not even visible to you now. The things that seemed impossible then are either done or have been forgotten or have simply stopped mattering. Time moved, as it always does, and it took that present with it. Your current present will also pass. The question is only what you will have built in the passing of it. Because time does not wait. It does not offer warnings before it moves. It simply moves, carrying you with it. And the only choice you have is whether you are consciously participating in that movement or simply being carried. Being carried is comfortable. The Nafs prefers it. You do not have to decide anything. You do not have to bear the discomfort of choosing. You just let the days move through you while you remain essentially unchanged. But unchanged is not neutral. It is a direction. Every day you remain in the same pattern is a day the pattern deepens. Every week of repetition is a week the Nafs has strengthened its hold. Every year of being carried is a year that the life you imagined living has moved further from where you actually are. The distance between who you are and who you could be is not static. It either closes or it widens. There is no standing still. This is the urgency that the Ruh holds. Not the urgency of panic, not the urgency of deadline, but the urgency of someone who understands that this life is finite and that what is done with it matters in a way that no amount of comfort or avoidance can erase. The traditions of the heart have always known this. They did not dwell on it in a way that produced fear. They held it in a way that produced clarity. a kind of sober, grounded understanding that the time given is precious, that the faculties given are gifts, that the capacity to choose is not a burden but an honor, and that wasting it through comfortable repetition is not simply a personal loss. It is a kind of ingratitude, not the dramatic ingratitude of someone who rejects what they have been given. The quiet ingratitude of someone who simply does not use it, of someone who keeps the gift wrapped, displayed on a shelf, admired occasionally, but never opened, never put to use, never brought into contact with the actual, imperfect, difficult, real life that they are living. You were not given potential as a decoration. It was given to be expressed, not expressed perfectly, not expressed under ideal conditions, not expressed once the fear is gone and the circumstances cooperate and the timing finally feels right. Expressed now, imperfectly, in the conditions that actually exist, with the tools that are actually available, with the capacity that is genuinely present right now. Imperfect expression is still expression. An imperfect step is still movement. An imperfect attempt to keep a promise to yourself still says something real to the interior, something the Nafs cannot argue with, something that begins, slowly and surely, to shift what is possible. Let us come to the thing that ties all of this together, because everything that has been said here, the Nafs and its patterns, the Qalb and its divisions, the Ruh and its quiet holding, all of it points toward the same thing. The thing that actually changes a life is not an insight, not a realization, not a moment of deep self-understanding. All of those things matter. They are the context. They are the orientation. They are what allows you to recognize the moment of choice when it arrives. But they do not by themselves produce the change. The change is produced by the response. What you do in the ordinary moment, what you choose in the pause, whether you walk through the familiar door or take the unfamiliar step, that is where the life is built or not built. And the response is available to you, not in theory, right now, today, in the next hour, in the next decision that requires you to either act in accordance with who you want to be or retreat into who you have been. The response does not require that you feel ready. It does not require that the Nafs is quiet. It does not require that the Qalb is fully settled or that the Ruh is loudly speaking. It only requires that you choose, in this moment, to act as though what you do right now is being written into who you will be, because it is. Every moment is. Every moment was. And the accumulation of every moment is what you call your life. The heaviness you feel is not failure asking you to give up. It is the weight of unlived possibility asking to be lived. And you are the only one who can answer it.